3, 2, 1. Welcome to Tech Talks. My name is Michael Bertoni, and I'm the founder and CEO of PhillyTech, and your host for Tech Talks. Tech Talks is every Wednesday, somewhere between 12 and 2:30 every week, where we interview awesome founders, co-founders, executives, people within our tech ecosystem. And I am so super excited to be launching this show for everybody. And I appreciate all the listeners that are out there. And I wanted to introduce Nick Lagnese. He is the co-founder of Transparency in Politics. Great to have you here, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Happy to be here.
So, Nick, what better time than now, right? So we're having fun here, guys. What better time than now to be talking about transparency in politics, right? What is the business problem? There is a huge, big business problem that you are solving. Can you explain that to the audience, please?
Yeah, sure. I think it's best described in a story that's kind of relatable to everybody. So I'm friends with this woman named Daniela. And Daniela goes to Temple University, and she lives in Bucks County, so she commutes, right? So every day she gets up, she takes the train over, she goes to class, whatever. But one day, last year before COVID, when we were still in person going to classes, her class was talking about some problems in the neighborhood, some looting, some things like that. And she decided to say that, I think the police should be more empowered and deal with that situation in a more powerful way. So she was immediately rejected by her classmates, her professor, and she ended up losing friends because of this. Now, Daniela, after she goes to class, she takes the train back. She works at a diner in Bucks County. And at this diner one day, she went in for a raise. She was due for a raise that day. She went into her boss's office. The boss looks down at her backpack, sees a Black Lives Matter button, makes a face that's, not too positive, and she doesn't get the raise. So Daniela, she's pretty upset she didn't get the raise, and as she's leaving to go home, she notices that her hours got cut for next week. All right?
Wow.
So Daniela gets home. Dinner is, let's say it's 8:30, 9 o'clock. Daniela has, her family has already prepared dinner. They're already finishing up. She gets home, and they're arguing over the dinner at the dinner table over some presidential tweet.
Right.
So she grabs her leftovers. She's a little confused, a little annoyed more than anything else. And what does she do to handle the situation? To deal with this, to deal with her confusion, she hops on Facebook. And she deals with the same nonsense that she was been dealing with all day, but now it's online. So that's the big problem we're trying to solve here, is that there's these opinions going around, this misinformation, this misdirection, that's not just in your daily life. It's not just on social media, but it's in mainstream media as well. And it's a lot of bullshit, to be honest. Yeah.
You can't trust, right? You can't trust the media, right? I mean, so you go on every news station, you look at the newspapers, and you can't trust what people are saying. What's real and what's fake, right?
Right, yeah.
So the big thing that obviously Trump always said is fake news. So fake news is probably real, right, Nick? I mean, it's probably real. How do we fix that?
Well, I mean, that's what we're trying to do here at TiP. So we're creating a platform that we're intending to be the one-stop shop for politics, for citizen engagement. So the way we're doing this is by first building out a platform for voters to send in their opinions on popular policy legislation directly to their lawmakers. And then in the same platform, provide what we call politician profiles that only contain unbiased, publicly sourced data, which don't be scared away by the term unbiased, all right? We're just talking about voting records, campaign policies, contact information, things like that, all right? We're not a media company. We don't write stories. We don't have opinions. We just want to provide voters with facts and give them a platform to amplify their voice.
So it's a place where, an independent place where people can talk to their politicians in an unbiased way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a great intro, Nick. I really appreciate coming to my show. And tell me a little bit about your background, because I think it's unique. Every startup in the ecosystem has their own unique kind of backstory. So tell me more about your backstory. What got you into this? What'd you do before TiP? What are you doing now?
Well, I think what makes my backstory and my co-founder's backstory kind of unique is that it's not very unique at all. It's pretty relatable. So I'm a Temple student. I'm Temple University. I'm a finance major. I'm a senior. And in 2016, me and my co-founder were voting for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it was a pretty important election. It was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. You know, I'm sure if you remember, everyone was pretty riled up about that. But what we saw because of that election kind of blew us back. All right, so the amount of misinformation going around, the amount of literal fake news going around, being spread, especially on social media, was crazy. And we saw our families split in the middle because half of them were conservative and half of them were liberal. And, you know, it causes arguments. It makes Thanksgiving dinner, you know, pretty awful. So we saw this election in front of our eyes as our first election, and we knew something had to change. So, you know, it wasn't right away. We kind of let it fester in our mind a little bit. And 2 years later, we decided to work on a school project together which was just our politician profiles at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a platform for voters to express their opinions, but we wanted a place where voters could see the actual views of politicians.
Right.
So in 2018, we started working on this, and as of 2020, we've incorporated into a corporation, and you know, we're just trying to make this an actual business that can, you know, influence elections and influence the minds of voters and hopefully politicians too.
So when I saw Nick's company, again, very exciting. He is within an incubator within Philadelphia Startup Leaders, PSL, which is, for the audience, one of the largest, pretty much the largest place for startups in Philadelphia. So that's pretty exciting, Nick, that you're in that. So tell the audience a little bit about that. You know, what is that accelerator program, the PSL, Philadelphia Startup Leaders? Like, what is that and how do they give value?
Yeah, so PSL is an accelerator that is applicant-based. So we applied, I believe, in August. They narrowed it down from like 100 to 30 and then eventually to 10. So every year they pick 10 startups and they take you through weekly seminars on all the aspects of starting a business, whether it's, you know, marketing, development, finance, legal, anything you can imagine that is related to running a startup, they go over on a week-to-week basis. But the more important thing that I think PSL brings to the table is their network.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, PSL is probably, you know, the largest accelerator in Philadelphia. And, you know, by that, you know, what I mean is not that they provide you with, you know, exorbitant amount of money or anything like that, but their network is incredible. So everyone in the Philadelphia startup community, not everybody, but most people are pretty aware of PSL, right? And
Yeah.
they are involved and they mentor from week to week. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that every week there's a group of mentors that come into our seminars and they explain their aspect of the business. But then more importantly, after they explain and after they lecture us or whatever, there's time for a Q&A, but then there's also the opportunity for us to talk to them on our own.
Yeah.
So my network has grown, you know, fivefold since I got to PSL. And, you know, I think every startup in the program benefits from that pretty greatly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what impressed me about your company, right? Getting into PSL, getting into that accelerator, it's a great thing, right? So everybody check that out, Philadelphia Startup Leaders. And what's the accelerator called again? It's actually called something, right?
Yeah, the Founded in Philly Series 2 accelerator. There's also a Series 1 accelerator for companies in more of the idea stage.
Right.
This is their growth accelerator.
And again, I'm with Nick Lagnese here. He's the co-founder of Transparency in Politics. And we just wanted to let you know, up in the right-hand corner up there of the screen is transparencyinpolitics.org, right? So we'd like you to go there, sign up. He's got a newsletter. So tell the audience where you are right now with Transparency in Politics. Like, where are you right now, and what's your vision? What's your vision for the company?
Right. So we're still pretty early on. So what we're doing right now to focus on, gaining an investment to build out the full product, right now we're building out an MVP of the client-facing side.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, this means we're building out a web app that politicians will be able to look at and be able to visualize what their voters and what their constituents' opinions are on various policy and legislation. So think of, if you're familiar with RStudio, it's a data visualization tool that is used, and we're basically doing that for our data so politicians know what's going on.
Nice. And I know what's pretty cool about your company is you actually have some pilot customers. I believe you have maybe even a paid customer because we talked about this, or going to pay, right? So one of the biggest things about a startup is you got to build a product, right? He's building a product. You got to have customers. You got to be talking to customers. So we just talked about the product, kind of where that is. Where are you with customers, and onboarding customers in?
Yeah, so we have three politicians specifically that have expressed interest in paying for our data post-launch. And so what we're just trying to do right now is build them what they're going to see once the app comes out. So we can confirm with them that the data that we're providing and the platform that we're providing to our clients, it will be valuable. Then we're hoping to go back to investors that we've been talking with and raise money to build out a team to build the app itself.
Yeah, nice.
But if we built the app itself first, then it's kind of like a chicken and egg problem where we'd have to get users and customers at the same time. So we kind of just decided to focus on the egg in this case.
Sure. So tell the audience a little bit about the workflow of this app, right? So start from the who are the customers, right? So start there. So I know you have the politicians and you have the people that want to talk to politicians, right? So talk about the customers of this product, and then talk about the product itself. Like, so the workflow, how's it going to work? How's this product going to work?
Right. So, I mean, the customers themselves, right now we're focusing on politicians, but, in the future, we've kind of discovered that political consultants are really the ones that feed politicians this data. So although we are sending user opinions directly to their politicians, we might also include political consultants as well. Looking from a product side, you log into the app, you fill out a demographic profile about, things about you that you want politicians to know. Maybe it's your race, maybe it's your income level, whatever you want politicians to know about you, you can share. And then after that point, you can. Our main purpose of the app is this platform to express your opinions.
Mm-hmm.
So the first button you'll see is what we call our polling button, right? And users will be able to click on that, and we'll have a list of polls of various issues, maybe like gun control, healthcare, whatever. And they'll be able to fill out their opinions, really short, 2-minute polls, and send them off to their politicians. We call them TiPs, so to speak, because we are TiP.
Nice.
But and then after they send their opinions, right, we take that data, and not only do we give that to their representatives, but we then compare that with politician voting records and formulate a percent match score between the user and every single politician in our database. So the person that you're most aligned with based on your views, not based on the media's views.
Nice. So where do you think this could go? Like, in terms of what is your, what's the big picture here? What's the vision in terms of this, right? In terms of this product, where do you see this company, this product in, say, 5 years and 10 years? What's the big idea?
Democracy 2.0. I mean, democracy, our government specifically is really behind technology-wise, all right? I don't think that's a secret. I think the powers that be kind of want to keep it that way for as long as they can because it's a lot easier to do things the way things have been done, right? Mm-hmm. But that's just not going to fly anymore, all right? There's a lot of issues out there that are really important that politicians aren't paying attention to, and there's a lot of politicians that are doing things that their voters don't know about. So we're just trying to create a platform to make a democracy a true representative democracy, make it more transparent, make it more accessible to not only the voter, but to the politician as well, so they know exactly who their voters are and what they want.
So what about the big challenge of voting, right? So we all saw the big challenge of voting, right? So, in the 21st century, the fact that we mail in ballots and things aren't online, right? So do you see your platform getting involved in helping voting eventually down the road, right? You obviously, at some point in time, we're going to start using technology and apps and software to vote. So what do you think about that problem?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, we want to be the one-stop shop for politics, right? So that's definitely in our vision. But in the more short term, we definitely want to increase voter turnout just by providing factual information. I think a lot of people are turned away from voting right now because of how crazy it is and how conflicting it is. So in the short term, we want to increase voter turnout naturally, just by providing information, by providing a platform. But yeah, like you said, in the long term, we definitely want to have voting through our app. Blockchain technology, if you know anything about that, is pretty secure. No one's hacked Bitcoin yet. So down the line, for sure, we want users to be able to vote through our app, but that's far in the future. There's a lot of regulations involving that and a lot of parties at play when it comes to that. But for sure, hopefully one day we'll be able to vote from the comforts of our homes.
So explain to me a little bit more about the customer, the politician, right? So what's your pitch to them and what are they saying to you, right? So what are your early stage customers? What are they saying? What do they need? That sort of thing.
So, our main tagline for our clients is that we are a pollster on retainer. And what that means is we are generating a platform of users that are interested in expressing their opinions again and again. So our clients will then be able to ask specific issues about whatever they want to a panel of users that will poll. Think YouGov with voter education. If you're familiar with that platform, it's essentially just an online panel of users that are polled again and again, and that's essentially what we're trying to build, but on an app and with voter education.
So what's the business model, right? So in terms of what that means is how are you going to make money? What's the business model with your with transparency in politics?
Yeah, so our plan right now is for politicians to subscribe to our services. So, for X amount of dollars per month, they'll be able to have access to this panel of users, on various levels as well. So maybe a local candidate will only be interested in one district's users, while a state level, or let's say a U.S. senator from Pennsylvania will be interested in politics on more of a statewide scale, maybe even national. So we're providing different levels of subscriptions for these clients to be able to have access to these users, and be able to poll whatever they want.
So I asked you this question in pregame here. I'm going to ask it to you again. So you're in an elevator. Joe Biden is next to you. He says, "Hey, man, what do you do?" What do you say? What's your elevator pitch?
All right, Joe. So misinformation and misdirection have taken over our political system, silencing the voices of citizens and politicians alike. All right. TiP is a free app that lowers the barrier of entry for political participation with a platform for citizens and politicians to communicate opinions.
Nice, but so I'll be Joe. So what do you mean? What's the value to me?
Well, your users, your voters have opinions, and they're pretty passionate about them. And right now, they feel like people like you and people like other politicians aren't listening actively. So what we're providing to you is the opportunity to become more transparent and the opportunity to, find out information about your voters that you want to hear.
How do I know that you're truly unbiased?
Yeah, all of our data is publicly sourced. We're not hiding anything. You can go on Ballotpedia's website. You can go on BillTrack50's website. These platforms just get voting records. They just get public information. There's no opinions about it. There's no narratives. It's just public information.
I think that's very important to understand for me as well as people listening. So what does that mean? So there's a lot of independent data out there, right? So what does that mean with your app? So you're going to get access to this independent data, bring it in. So what does that mean exactly that there's independent data? Let me understand more.
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're aggregating data sources. So essentially there's 4 or 5 data sources in our app that contain information like the voting records, who voted on what, what's the total vote, what did they, how did they talk about the bill before they voted on it, things like that. And we just aggregate that information into profiles, all right? There's a lot of information, and that's why people don't really go around like looking for like the truth, so to speak, is because it's scattered around the internet.
It's hard to find.
It's very hard to find, yeah.
Yeah, so what are these independent sources? Just for everybody to understand. So basically, they're going to bring in independent sources of data that we could all go to that are scattered. We can go to these things today, but they're scattered all over the place. What are some of these independent data sources today?
Yeah.
So everybody can understand.
Yeah, I would say my favorite one that people should check out is Ballotpedia. I would say Ballotpedia is my favorite, but govtrack.us is another great one. For legislation, we use BillTrack50 right now. Legiscan is another good one. Like I said, there's so many sources out there, and they all cover information that you can't lie about. There's no opinions on if politician X voted for Bill Y. You know.
Right. So give me an example of some of this data, right? And then how you're going to integrate it into your apps. Give me a story. Give me a story of like, so okay, some of this data, then politicians, then what does a pollster on retainer kind of look like?
Yeah. So I guess for us, this is. Are you talking about more on like the polling side or the politician profile side?
Kind of both. I mean, so I'm trying to understand more about this data and how you bring in this data and then integrate it into your app and send out polls, I would assume, to people based on what the politicians want. So the politicians kind of enable it, right? So I'm just trying to understand how the app flows a little bit more. And, I'm sure my users and people listening would want to understand more too. So that's the perspective.
All right. Yeah. So let's start on the politician profile side then. All right. So we take all these data sources, and the way we kind of simplify it is one, provide like a basic biography of the politician, right? So this will contain their social media handles, their contact information, the current office, maybe the office that they're running for, their name, their picture, things like that. All right. All of that is on the top of their profile. But then in the substance of their profile, we have their actual voting records and links to the legislation that they voted on.
Mm-hmm.
But the way we actually simplify that within their profile as well is we take all of their views. So let's use healthcare, for example. We take all of their votes on bills relative to healthcare, and we essentially average out a score from left to right and place them on a spectrum, a visual spectrum that users can easily digest exactly where their politician stands on each individual issue, right? So that's how we simplify the data on the politician side. On the polling side, essentially it's just up to the client. So whatever the client is interested in learning about their constituents, I think that's the most valuable. And I think that as a voter, I want to be giving my opinion on those important issues, the issues that politicians care about. I want to be giving my opinion as much as possible. And we hope that our users will too. But
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I got to tell you, as a, I vote and stuff like that, but I didn't necessarily know there were these data sources. I don't think people a lot of times do. So you're saying I could go to these places, they're all scattered, right? So say there's 20, right? You're going to bring them all to one place, right? And if I want to know how does Biden or Trump feel about abortion, right? I'm going to be able to research that and understand unbiased stuff, right?
Exactly.
As a person. And then the politician client comes to you and says, I want to understand how how people in Nebraska feel about abortion and me, right?
Right.
And then you're running a poll. So how do you do that? Like, so how do you find people in Nebraska to do these polls? How does that work?
Well, I mean, when we start, we're not going to have people in Nebraska. We're launching solely in Philadelphia and the greater area to start.
Got it.
Just to keep, we're a startup, so we have to keep operating costs low. We have to prove our concept before we can expand nationally. But in the app itself, let's talk outside of the app. So clients will come to us; they're already subscribing to our service at this point, and they just ask us what they want to be polled, who they want to be polled, and when they want to have that poll go out. So they might say, all right, I want he's not a client, but let's use Senator Street, for example, because he lives like a block from my house, all right? So, or his office is a block from my house. So let's say he wants everyone polled on abortion on the block of 16th and Jefferson, because for whatever reason, he found that there's a lot of voters on that block compared to other blocks in his district.
Right.
So then we, within our app, specifically target those locations, because within the demographic profiles of users, we'll have their address. It's very important to know who your politicians are, because zip code is not enough. You need to know your exact address. You don't have to tell us your apartment number or anything like that, but
right.
The street number and all that is very important. So we'll have that information, and we'll know which users are on that block, and all we have to do is target those users within the app, and they'll be the only ones to see that specific poll. And that can be applied to any location, any other demographic in the user profile, whatever the client wants.
Interesting. So you get it out. So how do you get it out to the people, right? So how does that actually happen? I mean, are you using mail? Are you just using social media? Like, how are you doing that?
How are we getting users to poll?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll just be on the app. So the way we're marketing this is mainly as a platform for you to express your opinions, to be part of a larger conversation more than an annual vote. So we'll essentially just send a push notification to our users and, maybe an email blast too, letting them know that there's a new poll in the app that'll be around for, let's say, a week. And you, at some point this week, we'd love to get your opinion. Just hop on the app, take 2 minutes, share it, and your politicians will know what you think.
So you're going to launch in Philly, or you're launching in Philly. So how are you going to get, you're going to launch and you're going to get people on this app, right? So what are your goals for that? Like, so say you launch in a month, right? How many users do you think you can get in a few months or a year? Because it's, that's important. You're going to have users on this thing.
Right.
So how do you do that? How does that work?
Well, a normal poll is between 300 and 1,000 responses, all right, normally. So our user count needed for launch to monetize our data is pretty low. We just need around 300 to 1,000 users answering every single poll, which, is still a task, and we still have to market it, and there's still have to be there's still dollars to be spent. There's still conversations to be had. There's still plans to be made in terms of, exactly how we're going to or who we're going to target when we launch here. But once we do, then we're just going to express that this is a platform for voters. This is not, although politicians are the ones consuming this data, this is a platform for voters to be more informed and to be more engaged in their political scene.
Nice. So Nick, we are going to be wrapping up in a few minutes here, and I wanted to give you the opportunity for your ask, right? So how can the audience help you, right? First off, how can they help you? Where can they find you, right? And absolutely everybody, make sure you go to transparencyinpolitics.org and sign up. But, tell everybody, what are you looking for? Like right now, what's your ask? Like from the audience, how can my audience help you? How can people, out there, what can they do for you at this point?
Well, yeah, I'd say for one, if you're tired of the current political system, if you're tired of, the media, if you're tired of anything related to politics, come to transparencyinpolitics.org, sign up. We're trying to build a platform to fix this exact issue.
Right.
I've described a lot of things here, but ultimately our grand vision is to fix that issue.
Right.
All right. And then also I would just say if anyone's interested in, helping us out, if they want to be a part of this team, feel free to reach out, nick@transparencyinpolitics.org. So just my name at our URL. And, if you want to help out, feel free to reach out. But then in terms of, what we're actually asking for our company is,
Sure.
Our seed round. We're raising, a decent amount of money.
Nice.
So if you're interested in helping out there, you can reach out to my email as well.
Nice. So Nick, it was awesome having you on my show. So let's do a fist pump.
All right, Mike.
Fist pump. Awesome having you on my show. And again, reach out to Nick at transparencyinpolitics.org. Make sure you go to his website and sign up, right? This is a humongous issue, transparency in politics, that these guys are trying to fix. So again, my name is Michael Bertoni. I'm the founder and CEO of PhillyTech, and I could be reached on LinkedIn pretty easily. You could come to phillytech.co. So thanks a lot again, Nick, and come on back next week and every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. next week. Talk to everyone soon.
Thanks.
Fist pump.
One more
Nice.
time.